Hello, welcome to my quarantine catch-up part 2. Much like the last video, I said even though movie theaters are open, I'm only going to be staying home to watch movies because it's still kind of sketchy. So what are the other movies I saw this month? Well, let's find out. Well, there's a black speck in there, but I'm sure it's fine. The King of Staten Island is about a man who, after the death of his father when he was a child, has to finally get his life together once his sister goes off to college and his mom starts dating a new man. The film stars Pete Davidson, who also wrote the film along with Dave Cyrus and Judd Apatow, who also directed the movie. And I went in with mixed feelings because even though I'm a huge Pete Davidson fan, I was kind of worried that in general, it was going to be really generic, and even though a lot of it is from his personal, or at least it's inspired by his personal life, I didn't know how that was going to end up translating. I didn't know how authentic it was going to feel, but I will say it is a very, very, very funny movie, also very heartfelt. I think they did a really good job when it came to portraying and mixing the drama and the comedy. Pete Davidson is easily the best part of the movie, which isn't a surprise because it was also written by him. He's basically playing himself in the movie. After basically playing yourself on TV for so long, you get pretty good at it. But everyone else does really good. Bill Burr, he's a guy that you are enjoying his presence, but also get annoyed by him just as much. There's a conversation he has at the end of the movie, and I think it's just an interesting line just because I haven't heard it a whole bunch. Maybe I'm missing out on stuff, but it was the line where he's talking to his mom, played by Marissa Tomei, and he's basically he's trying to get his shit together, but it's just really hard, and he thinks it's always going to be hard. And I don't know, I really like that line because it's one of those things where in a lot of movies, there's so many things that are wrapped up in a nice little bow, and he gets his shit together and he's starting to become an adult, but the movie acknowledges that he's not a perfect person and he's probably gonna struggle a lot, and I enjoyed that. And I think, like I said, I know I'm kind of spin the wheels at this point, even though the movie does take a better, more realistic approach to someone struggling with their own personal problems and not tying everything up in a nice little bow. It still has the movie kind of trope ending where things are starting to work out, whether or not they fully should or not, but I do give it a pass. But like I said, overall good movie. I did enjoy it. I laughed a lot and I felt a lot. The Secret Garden is the most recent adaptation of the 1911 children's book. The story follows a young orphan girl who finds a hidden magical garden deep in her distant uncle's estate. However, it seems that the garden isn't the only secret here. The film stars Dixie Edgerick as the little girl Mary, directed by Mark Mudden and written by Jack Thorne. So the other movie I enjoyed enough, not as much as The King of Staten Island. I would say The Secret Garden, I put on the same level as The Kid Who Would Be King, where I feel like if I was younger, I would really, really like this movie. As an adult, I think it's a pretty good kids movie. The things that stand out for me: the direction overall, I do like. I like the art design and the set design and everything. I think they did a really good job with the colors. The effects are overall pretty good. And the story itself, I remember reading the book, but I was in elementary school, so I don't remember specific things. And of course I didn't read the book now because I'm a big old dum-dum and I don't read those word binders. So I looked up the synopsis of the book to see the differences, and there's some, but it's more of the time period. But it's no big changes to me that were super noticeable except the ending. Overall, I think the character dynamics are really, really good, and the character progression, because at the beginning, the little girl, she is pretty annoying. She's kind of a rude ass bitch, but it's fine because, again, by the time you're 30 minutes in the movie, she's already starting to come around. She's being more nice. She's being more reasonable, and the performances themselves are pretty good all around, except for one. Colin, the main character's cousin, he is downright annoying as shit. And yes, he does come around at the end of the movie, but oh my god, he's a little too annoying. And I know his character's purpose is to be annoying, but there's a point to where it's maybe you're maybe it's too much. He's almost too unlikable. And again, they have a similar backstory to the main character, but it's still like grating to watch him. But he gets better, and by that point it's fine. I think the movie itself like has those kid movie tendencies where it's a little too like whimsical, like the first half of Bridge to Terabithia before it makes the sharpest turn ever. The story itself was interesting. It's paced pretty well, especially like when you have a kids movie. You really do have to have good pacing because kids' attention spans aren't the best, and you have to constantly entertain them. Which, I mean, if a movie's constantly entertaining you, it's not a bad thing. So I appreciate that the movie, although is overall kind of laid back, it still has a good pace to it. There's some sense of adventure. The colors and the effects, they're very eye-catching, and the direction, I think, is really well done. So, yes, I would recommend The Secret Garden. So now, moving on to the movies I didn't hate, but I did not like as much. Shit. Oh, my lord. Jesus Christ. You can, like, move somewhere else, please, sir. Wow. How about that, huh? Woohoo. Project Power is a new drug that gives people superpowers for 5 minutes. Jamie Foxx plays an ex-soldier who teams up with a dealer, played by Dominique Fishback, and her cop friend, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, to find his daughter and take the product off the streets for good. Directed by Henry Joost and Ariel Schulman, and written by Mattson Tomlin. So Project Power is a mixed bag for me because although the idea and the premise are very interesting, these pills, pop one in, and depending on your DNA and how it matches up, you get like a specific power tailored for you. And it only lasts 5 minutes, so like you have like the race against the clock kind of aspect. Fun. And the movie doesn't do a lot with that. Like, really? Well, okay, I'll go over the stuff I like first. So the performances overall are fine. They're fine. Nothing, I can't recall off the top of my head, like, one that was just so bad or, like, stand out too much. But there wasn't one that really, like, struck me as, like, oh, wow, this guy fucks, or whatever. And I would say the camera work and the lighting and the color for being a superhero movie, it, like, looks like the shots are almost taken out of, like, comic panels. And that's obviously on purpose, but they did it well, and it gave the movie its own style and look. However, the big issue comes in with such an interesting premise. The storyline itself is really fucking generic. Like, is so overdone and just not interesting in the slightest. You have, like, this father saves daughter storyline, but, like, the daughter doesn't even show up until, like, the end of the movie, and you're hanging out with, like, this other girl who's, like, not related to Jamie Foxx, like, at all. And she has, like, her own story going on. But it doesn't feel like it's that important, really. She's just trying to be a good person, help him get his daughter back and whatever. And, like, I feel like the cop with Joseph Gordon-Levitt was, like, the more interesting aspect of the movie. But, like, those parts are fun to watch when he takes his pill and, like, he's invincible for a little bit. Like, that's kind of fun. But it's whatever. Again, it's a movie that's more disappointing than it is bad because, like, you see the potential. Because there are parts in the movie where you're like, okay, I like that. Okay, that can go somewhere. And we can, like, they could do something with that. And then they don't really. They just kind of do the most normal 101 superhero cliche kind of stuff. The movie almost feels like it has no stakes because it kind of spoils a certain person's power. So later, when Jamie Foxx finally unleashes, like, his ability, it's like, okay, but I already know how this is going to end because you already showed me the other person. So it doesn't matter. The editing, I think, during the action scenes, although I like the frantic pacing, it does make you go, like it makes things a little bit more intense, and I get it. But sometimes it feels as if it's almost, like, too much. My stomach's getting sick watching this. Overall, I think the movie's fine. It's serviceable. It was getting really hyped up with the trailers and everything, and everyone was like making a big fuss about it. I remember right before it came out, and then a week after it came out, everyone like who was really hyped saw it, and I think everyone had the same feeling where it was like, oh, okay, and that's the movie. Like, oh, how's Project Power? I would say if you were really interested in it, I would say go ahead and watch it. Similar to King of Staten Island. If it's a movie that you are already interested in, go see it. If not, you're not really missing anything, even though the premise is kind of fun and the action overall can be kind of interesting, and how like they film it and like how the powers interact and everything. So yeah, Project Power, it's fine. It's perfectly serviceable if you have 2 hours to kill and you got nothing else to watch, because at this point people are starting to run out of things to watch on Netflix. If you haven't watched it yet, go ahead, depending on your standards. If you're down for anything superhero, this is not going to be the worst thing you're going to watch, because, you know, as long as like Batman, Robin, and Steel are accessible, we got plenty below this one. Superman 4, of course. Oh, fuck. So now moving on to the movies I did not enjoy this past couple months. Scoob is the new adaptation of the classic Hanna-Barbera cartoon, following Scooby and Shaggy having to stop an evil villain from unleashing some evil magic, while discovering some superpower friends along the way. The movie is directed by Tony Servan and written by Jack C. Donaldson, Derek Elliott, Matt Lieberman, and story by Jonathan E. Stewart. Well, here we go. And Scoob on its own is fine. I think it's fine. Kind of. I understand if people like it. I completely get it, because it has some form of entertaining qualities to it. I think as a whole, though, and with the context of everything, it's when I start kind of separating myself and I start not liking it. So obviously, quickly, the things I enjoyed. I really like the 60s and 70s, like classic Hanna-Barbera sound effects mixed in with like the modern, the 2020 3D animation. I think it gives the movie its own little personality to it. There are some funny jokes here and there. I laughed a couple times. This movie is a fucking clusterfuck. Like, firstly, the gang gets split up really early in the movie. So within like 15 minutes, Shaggy and Scooby, like in the trailer, they get abducted. That happens, like I said, 15 minutes into the movie. And then for the rest of the movie, until like right before the final act, the gang doesn't, like, they're split. You could take Fred, Daphne, and Velma out of the movie, and you really wouldn't have to change much about the plot. That's how little they impact the movie. I understand the movie's called Scoob, so he's like the main character and everything. I get that. The gang should play some role besides, like, just kind of being there, because if you don't put them in the movie, it's way more distracting. But it's the fact that they don't do anything of note that like other characters couldn't just been swapped around to do. Well, the movie gets really, really emotionally contrived at points when characters have like certain arguments that are supposed to be like big deals that like break off two characters so they can separate for something. But it's moments like that where it's like that's almost a kid movie trope where characters have to split up and make rash decisions that ultimately hurt everybody, and that's like there's like a lesson in that. That's fine. The issue comes in when it's forced beyond belief, and it's noticeable.
Why are we fighting?
And those contrived arguments are the issue. Like, those are the big problems. I know movies don't have to be realistic, but characters should make sense in their decisions. And in your writing, you should give a shit. And a note for the animation. The animation itself is very, very good. It's very clean, smooth. Oh, they rendered that shit. And it works. But not in this movie, because they still want characters to have, like, that, like, fast-moving flow to it. Like, high-energy, dynamic kind of look and feel. But this animation is not for that. It's, like, it's too nice for the kind of movement and energy they're trying to get out of the characters. It doesn't fit. It's almost like they're trying to have the kinetic energy of Spider-Verse with like animation like the Minions. Snapping kind of feel. If you have it super rubbery and like too smooth and bouncy. And on top of that, for a Scooby-Doo movie, it's not really mystery related. They act like the movie that there's a mystery, but it's not a mystery in the sense of like you have to piece the clues while you're watching it. You find out as the characters go, and it's not like there's nothing at the end that's like you get to piece it together and figure everything out, because nothing's really left up in the air. When the information's given to you, all of that information is given to you. There's not a lot you can solve on your own because you're not given smaller clues throughout to piece together. It's like you just get info dumped throughout the movie, and that's fine unless you're a mystery movie where you have to solve it, and like part of the fun is solving it yourself, like Knives Out. That movie is really fun to watch because the first time you watch it, you get to piece the movie together with the detective. In this one, you don't get that. You just kind of let them tell you what you need to know for this part of the movie, and then wait like 30 minutes, and then they'll tell you a little bit more. And you wait like 20 more minutes, and they tell you the last bit that you need. And that's it. And even like with the mystery stuff, like with the villain, okay, you can make it to where the villain's like who it is, like who's the villain. Well, no, you know exactly who the villain is, like really fucking early. Like they don't even try to hide who the villain is, and you find out his motivation like halfway through the movie. So not only is the plot itself not something you have to figure out, you don't have to figure out who the villain is, and you don't have to figure out why he's doing it. There's nothing for the viewer to sit down and try to piece together themselves. Halfway through the movie, nothing of the mystery is important anymore because like it's all laid out for you. 3/5 of the gang aren't really relevant to the plot, and it's not much of a mystery movie. Like you can see why as a Scooby-Doo movie, it's not a really good Scooby-Doo movie. And on top of it not being much of a mystery movie, you know what it is? It's a fucking superhero movie. This movie is clearly only going with the superhero genre because of Marvel. So it's like, okay, if you're going to take this property and kind of change it to from what it normally is, can you give it its own identity? No. It's just a very bland kids superhero thing. But yeah, the end credits are essentially like a big old fucking teaser trailer for Scooby-Doo Avengers shit. It's Blue Falcon, Dynamite, Captain Caveman, Grape Ape, Jabberjaw, and Adam Ant. And then Johnny Quest is referenced in the post-credits. Like, wow. Not only is this not really a Scooby-Doo movie, it basically becomes a commercial for the other movies that they're gonna do, and it wasn't even faithful to the original source material that this movie's based on. The villain is Dick Dastardly from Wacky Races. Like, they were already showing you that, like, oh no, we're just gonna grab all the Hanna-Barbera properties and put them in one movie, see how it goes, and we'll just make our own shit after that. And you kind of spoiled the first movie because you didn't just let it be its own thing. It had to be set up. Like, at the end of the day, Scoob is just a super generic superhero action comedy, just so happens to have Scooby-Doo in it. And to me, that's not worth this movie's existence. I know I've brought up like examples of like Scooby-Doo and like what does and doesn't work for Scooby-Doo, and I'm not like a purist, I'll admit that. When the movie focuses around a superhero that's like a different superhero from that's not specifically Scooby-Doo, fighting the villain from Wacky Races, and the title character is just kind of set decoration, I think your movie's focusing on the wrong stuff. But hey, maybe if this does well enough and they actually care about their like superhero crossover, Warner Brothers will make like a decent Justice League movie one day. Who knows? Artemis Fowl is about I'm going to quote IMDb for this one. A young criminal prodigy hunts down a society of fairies to find his missing father. I mean, that's kinda correct, but not really? Moving on. The film stars Ferdia Shaw as the titular Artemis Fowl in his first acting role. Josh Gad and Judi Dench show up for some reason, and a fairy named Holly Short, played by Laura McDonald. It's directed by Kenneth Branagh somehow, and is written by Connor McPherson and Hamish McColl. Artemis Fowl, I I'm pretty sure beats The Turning for the worst movie I've seen so far. No lie. The Turning gets points because, yeah, at least it's a full fucking movie. Feels like a movie that was like 2 hours, 2 hours and 15 minutes. And then they were like, no, keep cutting. And then they ended up with 90 minutes. And they were like, that's good. Here's the thing. It's not good. Yeah, this movie is fucking garbage. And I hate it. Don't watch it. Don't watch it. The effects, not great. They're not the worst thing I've ever they're not the worst thing I've ever seen, but they're not great. The story makes almost no sense. Like, the only way you could possibly piece anything together is because the movie is constantly explaining everything to you. So much is cut from this movie that there's no way you could possibly understand it without just exclusively expositional dialogue. Things are said just so, like, when character decisions are made or, like, people act certain ways, you could be like, oh, yeah, they did say that about them. So that's how I know. There's no, like, it's only tell, don't show. The editing is horrendous. The movie just jumps around to where things need, like, just so you have this information. We go to this character. We go here. Here's this person. Here's their thing. That's their name and their job. This is it. That's that. And, like, the plot jumps around. The villain... Let's talk about the villain real quick. What villain? They're probably in the movie for like a total of like 10 minutes of screen time. If that. That's really generous, I think, honestly. I'm going to spoil this right now. The movie ends with them going to fight the villain. You know, usually the ending of most movies, it stops right before the third act, it feels like. I noticed I was like 45 minutes in. I was like, okay, I'm halfway through this movie, and I really don't know what the plot is. I know character motivation just because, again, it was explained to you, but I don't know what the fuck the movie's about. Like, what are we doing? I guess they're elves. One of them, played by Judi Dench, is a leprechaun, I guess, because she makes it's based in Ireland, so
top of the morning.
There's like an evil one that pops in and out of the movie, and you find out he's working for like the villain, and he starts a mutiny, and then like 10 minutes later, everyone's like, you know what? No, we're gonna do the right thing. So it's like, no, okay, so he was just brought in to cause a disturbance for like 10 minutes, and then the movie gets resolved after like one fight scene. And I've never read the books. Remember, big dum-dum who don't read good. When the first teaser came out, I was like, oh, this looks kind of interesting. Some people are like, oh, this doesn't look super faithful. There's like, the teaser looks way better than the movie does. And that's because there are shots from the teaser that are not in the movie. I would say at least half of the shots, if not more, don't make it into the movie, which is like, okay, why is so much of this cut? You have Josh Gad narrating the movie, but has like a really gravelly voice. He's looking directly into the camera and he's like explaining everything, and the movie's trying to pass this off as interrogation, but it's just exposition. And that's his whole character's purpose. He's like, he's a dwarf, but he's like a tall dwarf, and dwarfs in this world, like, they dig around a lot. They're used for their digging abilities, and like they basically unhinge their jaws to dig and hunt treasure. But like when they eat the dirt, it flies out of their butt, and that's like just in the movie. You know what's really fucked up? The villain wants a specific item, and I cannot tell you what it's called, even though they say it like almost 20 times in the movie. That way you don't forget what it's called. Here's the thing. I think my brain's trying to protect me, so it's trying to make me forget this movie, because I already forgot what the item's called. It starts like an A. It's, hold on. Do I really have to Google this shit? I'm gonna. Artemis Fowl. It's called the It's called the Aculus. It looks like a bedazzled corn on the cob, and the villain wants it because it has like a lot of magic in it. They try to hype up like Artemis as this evil genius, but the movie just tells you he's like an evil genius, but like he's the good guy throughout the whole movie. And apparently in the books, he has like an arc where he's more of like an evil genius, and over time he actually starts to like care about people, and that's fine. That doesn't happen in the movie. So when they say he's an evil genius, it's like, well, he's only been the good guy, so you're lying. There's so many dumb things in this fucking movie. It's barely a movie. I almost don't want to call it that because it's almost not. The plot is non-existent. Almost non-existent. Like, the movie's almost not a movie because the plot is almost non-existent. There's almost no characters. Well, no, there's no characters. There's just people that they tell you that they're characters. Just exposition. It's all fucking talking. And there's nothing wrong with talking heavy movies. King of Staten Island is a very dialogue heavy movie. There's a lot of conversations in that movie. But they have purpose. They're not just exposition. They're character conversations. This movie does not have that. It's just info dumping on you. And the thing is, the amount of exposition and info dumping this movie gives you, I still don't know what the fuck is going on. It is awful. It's horrible. It's shitty. And it's probably going to be the worst movie. I hope nothing tops this as the worst movie of 2020 so far. And with that, that concludes this quarantine catch-up video. I'll make another what I saw this month, what I saw this year, once I see another handful of movies. That might take a minute because I'm still not going to the theaters yet until things are a little better and a little more easier on the mind to go out in public a little more. So until then, I will catch you guys later. I hope that sometime in November I'll have another short video to present y'all with. So until then, bye.